In a dusty garage, a quiet mechanic builds a special car for a young girl in a wheelchair, giving her the freedom she had always dreamed of. But when a powerful executive arrives in a sleek limousine, offering fame and fortune in exchange for the girl's precious gift, he must make a choice: sell out or protect the dream he helped create. What he decides next will leave us all in disbelief. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thoughts. Jack Turner had always lived a simple life in the small town of Willow Creek, working day after day in a modest garage that smelled of motor oil, rust, and time-worn leather. His hands were thick with calluses, his shirts always stained with grease, but there was a kindness in his voice that made people trust him, a steady presence in a town that rarely changed. He wasn't the kind of man who sought attention or applause. He simply believed in doing good work and helping when he could. It was on a warm afternoon, the sun hanging low over the dusty street, that fate decided to knock on his door in the form of a little girl named Anna Collins. Anna had always admired the garage from a distance, her wheelchair parked along the sidewalk, her bright eyes tracking the cars and trucks Jack worked on. She had been paralyzed from the waist down since she was a toddler, the result of a car accident that left scars no one could see. Despite her challenges, Anna radiated a spirit that could not be dimmed. That afternoon, accompanied by her mother, she gathered the courage to roll through the open bay doors of the garage, her small hands gripping the wheels as she ventured into the world Jack lived in. Jack glanced up from under the hood of an old Chevy, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, and smiled at the sight of her. Anna's mother, a woman with worry etched into the lines of her face, stood nervously nearby, glancing around as if unsure they belonged there. But Jack, sensing the hesitation, crouched down to Anna's level, offering a warm, "Well, hey there, little lady, you like cars, huh?" Anna's eyes lit up instantly, her voice small but clear. "I love them. I dream about driving one someday." The way she said it, without bitterness, just pure hope, hit Jack harder than any wrench ever could. For a moment he forgot about the broken radiator he had been fixing and saw only the dream sparkling in this little girl's heart. Jack leaned against the car, crossing his arms, thinking. In that brief silence, Anna's mother began to apologize, muttering about not wanting to disturb his work, about how Anna just liked to watch. But Jack shook his head, his gaze still fixed thoughtfully on Anna. He saw more than just a child in a wheelchair. He saw a fire that refused to be extinguished. "What if—" Jack started, the idea forming as he spoke. "What if I could build something just for you?" His words were simple, but they hung in the air like a promise. Anna's eyes widened, disbelief and wonder battling across her face. Her mother, meanwhile, stiffened, the years of disappointment, of broken hopes, flashing across her features. Jack didn't blame her for doubting. Life had likely taught her not to trust good things coming easily, but he saw an opportunity. Not for charity, not for pity, but for a gift of freedom crafted with care and respect. In that quiet moment, as the garage hummed with the sound of faraway cars and the smell of oil hung thick in the air, a silent pact was made. Jack Turner, the ordinary mechanic from Willow Creek, had just decided to change a life, and he had no idea how much his own life was about to change with it. From the moment Jack Turner made that promise, his world shifted gears. He spent the rest of that afternoon pacing the garage, scratching ideas on scraps of paper, his mind racing faster than any engine he had ever tuned. He knew he couldn't just take an old go-kart and hand it over. No, Anna deserved something made with real care, something that would make her feel not limited but limitless. It had to be safe, easy to control, and most of all, it had to make her feel alive. The next morning, Jack rummaged through his storage, dragging out boxes of forgotten parts, steering columns, lightweight frames, wheels that had once belonged to abandoned ATVs. He measured and remeasured, adjusting plans on the fly, picturing Anna's small hands gripping a steering wheel built just for her. Every bolt he tightened, every weld he secured, Jack thought of the smile that might break across Anna's face when she saw what he had created. Word traveled fast in a town like Willow Creek. Before long, neighbors were peeking through the open doors of Jack's garage, whispering about the strange contraption taking shape under the fluorescent lights. Some offered old parts, a battery here, a roll of leather for a seat there. They didn't understand exactly what Jack was building, but they could feel the purpose in the air, thick and humming like the charge before a summer storm. Every afternoon, just as the sun began to dip behind the trees, Anna and her mother would return. Anna, her hair tied back with a fraying blue ribbon, would wheel herself up the cracked pavement, her eyes wide with excitement. She asked questions non-stop, her curiosity bubbling over. How does the engine work? Can it go fast? Will it have a horn? Jack answered every question patiently, sometimes demonstrating, sometimes handing her a tool just to let her feel involved. Jack watched the spark inside her grow brighter with each visit. It was more than just the car. It was the belief that someone saw her, not her chair, not her disability, but her heart. Anna's mother, who at first had stayed quiet in the background, started to believe too. Jack noticed the way her shoulders relaxed over the days, the way she laughed more easily when Anna talked about her car, with the kind of fierce pride Jack recognized from every dreamer he had ever met. Weeks passed, and the project neared completion. Jack fashioned special hand controls so Anna could operate the gas and brake without using her legs. He installed extra padding, double-checked every safety feature, and even painted the frame a deep, shining cherry red, just the way Anna had described it. He wasn't building just a machine. He was building a doorway to freedom, crafted with rough, oil-stained hands and a heart that understood exactly what it meant to feel stuck. The day came when Jack rolled the little car out into the parking lot, the sun gleaming off its polished surface. Anna's gasp cut through the stillness like a song. Jack crouched beside her, placing the key into her hand with a solemn smile. "She's all yours," he said, voice thick with emotion he didn't bother to hide. Anna slid from her chair into the driver's seat with a determination that made her mother cry silently behind her. The engine sputtered, then roared to life under her touch. Jack stood back, his heart pounding as Anna carefully pressed the hand throttle and the car inched forward. A second later, laughter, pure, unrestrained laughter, burst from Anna's lips as she steered herself in slow circles, the red car gleaming under the afternoon sun. Jack wiped at his eyes with the back of his greasy hand, pretending it was just the wind. He had built a lot of things in his life, but nothing ever felt quite like this. In that moment, watching Anna's joy fill the street, Jack Turner believed that maybe, just maybe, a small garage in a sleepy town could change the world, one dream at a time. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this small act of kindness, born from bolts and scrap metal and stubborn hope, was about to send shockwaves far beyond Willow Creek, and Jack's quiet life was about to be turned upside down in ways he could never have imagined. It had only been a few days since Anna first took her car for a spin around Jack's garage, but the memory of her laughter still echoed in Jack's mind as he wiped down his workbench late one afternoon. He thought the excitement would die down, that life would quietly return to its normal rhythm. But Jack would soon realize that in a town like Willow Creek, good news traveled just as fast as bad, and sometimes much farther. Jack had just pulled the bay doors closed halfway when he heard it. The unmistakable low purr of a high-end engine, smooth and too clean for these dusty streets. He turned toward the sound, expecting maybe a lost tourist or a city slicker needing directions. What he saw instead made him drop the rag in his hand. A black limousine, sleek as glass and stretching long enough to look out of place against the cracked pavement, pulled to a stop right outside his garage. The door swung open with a soft, deliberate click. From the back seat stepped a man who looked like he belonged in a glossy magazine, not on the worn sidewalk of Willow Creek. His tailored suit caught the last rays of sunlight. His shoes gleamed without a speck of dust, and his confident stride carried the kind of weight Jack had only seen on men who were used to owning everything they touched. Jack straightened up, instinctively wiping his hands on his jeans, his heart thudding faster than he liked. The man walked right up to him, extending a hand with a practiced smile. "Jack Turner?" His voice was smooth, calm, but there was something underneath it. An edge sharpened by years of getting what he wanted. "Yeah," Jack replied cautiously, taking the hand. The man's grip was firm, almost calculated. "My name is Jonathan Brooks," he said, releasing Jack's hand and surveying the garage with quick, assessing eyes. "I'm the CEO of Brooks Automotive. I heard about what you built." "For the little girl." He didn't say Anna's name, Jack noticed, and that small omission made something uneasy stir in his gut. Jonathan didn't wait for a response. He paced slowly through the garage, inspecting the battered tool chests, the old cars in various states of repair, the rough cement floor stained by years of honest work. His polished shoes didn't belong here, and somehow that made every inch of the garage feel smaller. "I must say," Jonathan continued, his voice sliding easily into the empty space between them, "I'm impressed, very impressed. What you created here, it's innovative, it's inspiring, it's the kind of craftsmanship you don't see much these days." He paused, turning back to face Jack with a look that was almost approving. "And that's exactly why I'm here." Jack folded his arms across his chest, wary. He had seen enough in his life to know that words like these rarely came without strings attached. "Why are you really here, Mr. Brooks?" Jonathan smiled, a slow, measured smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Opportunity, Mr. Turner. I want to offer you something very few people ever get, a chance to take your work to the next level. Brooks Automotive is always seeking out talent that refuses to color inside the lines. You're exactly the kind of mind we want. Someone who doesn't just fix cars, someone who dreams bigger." Jack felt the world tilt slightly beneath him. It was everything he had ever wanted to hear, wasn't it? Recognition, a platform, the ability to create on a bigger scale. Still, something in Jonathan's polished words felt too slick, too easy. Jack thought of Anna's laugh, the way her mother had cried silently in the corner, the sheer rawness of what that little car had meant. It hadn't been about innovation or market potential. It had been about freedom, pure and simple. Jonathan stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "You join us, Jack, and you won't be building for just one child. You'll be creating for thousands, maybe millions. We have the resources to make your ideas reach farther than you ever imagined." He pulled a small card from his jacket pocket and held it out. "Think about it. You can change the world, if you're willing to step into a bigger arena." Jack took the card, more out of habit than intention, and stared at the neat black letters spelling out Jonathan's name. His hands, still rough with grease, felt out of place holding something so clean. Jonathan gave him a final nod, a signal that the conversation was finished for now. "I'll be in town a few more days. Take your time," he said, before turning back toward the waiting limo. Jack stood in the doorway, the card heavy in his hand, watching the vehicle disappear down the road. The setting sun cast long shadows across the garage floor, stretching the distance between what he had always known and the uncertain, glittering promise now laid at his feet. Inside Jack's chest, hope and doubt waged a silent war. Was this the chance he had been waiting for? Or was it a temptation that would pull him away from the very thing that had made his work matter in the first place? He didn't have the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure: the next choice he made would change everything. Jack Turner spent that night tossing and turning in the stiff hotel bed, the business card from Jonathan Brooks sitting like a stone on the nightstand. He had said he would think about it, but his mind wasn't settling on excitement the way he thought it might. Instead, it kept drifting back to Anna. The way her small hands had clutched the steering wheel, the way her laughter had bounced off the walls of his garage like sunlight on glass. Jack had built that car because he believed in something pure, something untouchable by money or ambition. Now, lying there staring at the cracked ceiling, he wasn't so sure anymore that Brooks Automotive cared about anything beyond a good headline and a bigger profit. The next morning, just as Jack was pouring himself a bitter cup of hotel coffee, his phone buzzed loudly against the table, rattling the ceramic mug beside it. He frowned, picking it up. It was a message from Anna. Short, shaky. "Mr. Turner, I need to talk to you. Please, I'm scared." Jack didn't even stop to finish his coffee. His stomach dropped as he fumbled to call her back, his heart pounding harder with every second of delay. The phone rang. Once, twice. Then Anna's small voice came through, trembling and breathless. "Mr. Turner," she whispered. "Someone from that car company. They came to our house yesterday." Jack's blood ran cold. He gripped the phone tighter, trying to keep his voice calm for her sake. "What did they want, Anna?" he asked, every instinct in him already screaming the answer he didn't want to hear. There was a pause, a shuddering breath on the other end. "They said they wanted to buy the car you built for me," Anna said, her voice breaking. "They said it would help my mom and me, that we could use the money. They kept saying it was a good deal. But, Mr. Turner, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to lose it." Jack closed his eyes, forcing down the flood of anger rising inside him. "You didn't sell it, did you, Anna?" he asked, barely breathing. "No," she said quickly, her voice firm despite the fear laced through it. "I told them no, but they said I should think about it. They're going to come back." Jack felt a knot tighten in his chest. This wasn't some polite business offer. It was pressure, plain and simple, dressed up in fine words and fake promises. "You did the right thing, Anna," Jack said, his voice low but steady. "Listen to me. I'm coming to you right now. You don't have to do anything. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to give up what's yours." He grabbed his jacket off the chair, his keys off the dresser, and slammed the door behind him without a second thought. The drive back to Willow Creek was a blur. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, his mind racing ahead to what he would say, what he would do. Jonathan Brooks had smiled that smooth, careful smile and talked about changing the world. But it was all just words. Jack understood now. Brooks Automotive didn't care about Anna or the miracle she had found in that little red car. They cared about owning the story, owning the headlines, owning the image of hope without ever earning it. When Jack pulled up outside Anna's small house, her mother was waiting at the door, her face pale and tight with worry. Jack barely had time to park before she rushed over. "Mr. Turner," she said, wringing her hands together, "thank you for coming. I didn't know who else to call. They said it would be good for Anna, but it didn't feel right." Jack nodded grimly, stepping past her into the modest living room, where Anna sat curled in her wheelchair, clutching the steering wheel of her car like a lifeline. Jack knelt down beside her, putting a hand gently on the armrest. "I'm here, kiddo," he said quietly, "and I'm not going to let anybody take what's yours." Anna looked up at him, her eyes wide and shining, a mixture of fear and trust that made Jack's chest ache. "But, Mr. Turner," she whispered, "what if we need the money someday? What if my mom says yes?" Jack shook his head, his voice firm but kind. "Anna, listen to me. No amount of money is worth giving up something that was made for you, from the heart. This isn't just a car, it's your freedom, it's your dream, and no one, not even a big fancy company, has the right to take that from you." Anna's mother wiped at her eyes, standing quietly by the doorway, listening. Jack stood up slowly, facing both of them with a look that left no room for argument. "If they come back," he said, "you don't answer the door. You call me. You tell them nothing is for sale, not now, not ever." As he stepped back outside into the cool morning air, Jack knew what he had to do. He had let himself believe, even for a moment, that a company like Brooks Automotive could share his vision of building hope. But now he saw the truth clearly. They didn't want to help, they wanted to own. And Jack Turner wasn't about to let them. He climbed into his truck, the engine roaring to life under his heavy hand. His jaw was set, his mind clear. It was time to face Jonathan Brooks and make sure he understood exactly what kind of fight he had picked. The next morning, Jack Turner stood at the base of the towering Brooks Automotive headquarters, staring up at the gleaming glass facade that reflected the cloudless sky. The building was everything Jack's garage was not: cold, polished, imposing. But Jack wasn't intimidated, not anymore. He shoved the heavy glass doors open and walked through the marble-floored lobby without hesitation, his boots echoing against the smooth stone as suited employees turned their heads to stare. A receptionist with a practiced smile tried to intercept him, but Jack's voice cut through the air like a blade. "I'm here to see Jonathan Brooks," he said, not asking, not waiting. Something in his voice must have warned her not to argue, because within minutes Jack found himself standing outside a heavy walnut door on the top floor. He didn't knock. He pushed it open and stepped inside. Jonathan Brooks was sitting behind a desk the size of a small car, leafing through a stack of papers with the same casual arrogance Jack remembered. He looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before settling back into that smooth, unreadable expression. "Mr. Turner," Jonathan said, setting the papers down and folding his hands neatly. "I wasn't expecting you so soon." Jack walked to the center of the room, every muscle in his body coiled tight with purpose. "I'm not here for small talk, Mr. Brooks," he said, his voice steady. "I'm here about Anna Collins and the car you tried to take from her." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, the smile never quite leaving his lips. "Ah," he said lightly, as if Jack had brought up a weather report. "You misunderstand. We simply made an offer. No one forced anything." Jack took a slow step closer to the desk. "You sent people to a little girl's house," he said, each word sharp and deliberate. "You pressured her family. You dangled money in front of them, hoping they'd give up something that was never for sale. That's not an offer, that's coercion." Jonathan's smile faded slightly, his eyes narrowing just a fraction. "Business, Mr. Turner," he said, his tone cooling. "It's how the world works. We see potential, we make deals. You of all people should understand that. You had your shot to join something bigger. You could have made a real impact." He gestured around the office, the skyline sprawling behind him. "But instead you choose to cling to sentimentality." Jack didn't flinch. He felt the weight of everything he had built. Not just the car, but the trust, the belief, the simple, unshakable truth that what he had given Anna wasn't a product to be bought or sold. It was hope. And hope wasn't for sale. "You think I'm clinging to sentiment?" Jack said, his voice rising just enough to fill the cavernous office. "That car isn't just a machine. It's freedom. It's dignity. It's everything that little girl was told she couldn't have. And you want to rip it away just so you can slap your name on it and call it progress." Jonathan's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, Turner," he said, his voice low now, almost a threat. "You think you can fight a company like this? You think you can stop us?" Jack smiled then, a real smile, the kind that came from knowing you were standing on solid ground while the world tried to shift beneath you. "I don't have to stop you," he said. "I just have to tell the truth, and people will see you for what you really are." There was a heavy silence between them, the kind that didn't need any more words. Jack turned without waiting for permission and walked out of the office, his boots thudding against the marble like a war drum. The card Jonathan had given him days before fluttered from his pocket and landed on the pristine floor. Unknown. Outside, the city stretched out around him, vast and indifferent. But Jack didn't feel small. He felt certain. He drove straight back to Willow Creek, to Anna's house, to the red car that sat gleaming proudly in the driveway. Anna was there waiting, her face pressed to the window until she saw him and rushed to the door. Jack crouched down beside her again, just like he had that first day. "It's yours, Anna," he said simply. "It always was, and it always will be." Anna smiled, and it wasn't just joy this time. It was trust, deep and fierce and whole. Jack realized then that real success wasn't measured by money or titles or the size of a building. It was measured by the laughter of a child steering her own path for the very first time, and the knowledge that no amount of power or greed could ever take that away. As Jack Turner stood in the fading afternoon light, watching Anna race her little red car down the street, her laughter chasing the wind, he knew without a doubt he had made the right choice. The fight wasn't over. It might never be. But Jack wasn't afraid. He had already won where it mattered most. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.